Welcome to the Voice of Putnam County Business. This is the podcast of the Putnam County Business Council, where we will be discussing all things related to Putnam County business climate and economic development in the county. We have Nick DeAndrea, General Manager of Park Ford. He is a director of the Putnam County Business Council, and also Nat Prentice of Prentice Investment Management, LLC. Nat is also the president of the Putnam County Business Council and also president of the Cold Spring Chamber of Commerce. We will welcome our host right after a brief message from our sponsor.
When Country Willow Furniture found people staying at home instead of furnishing their homes during the pandemic, the store worried about the loans that fueled their dramatic growth. But Tompkins Bank knew that solid relationships, like solid furniture, last far into the future. The value of a bank in your corner, the values of a bygone era. Tompkins gives you both, and the best banking relationship you'll ever have. Tompkins, your bank of choice. Find out more at tompkinsbank.com.
Well, we're back on the Voice of Putnam County Business. Nat, it's been a while, man.
I've missed you terribly. It has been really hard work not doing this with you right away. Glad we're back together.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And today we have a very special guest, a man that is near and dear to my heart. My father, the general manager, the dealer principal, and owner of Park Ford of Mahopac, who's been in this county for quite some time now.
25 years.
Rich, it's absolute pleasure. We've had you on the top of our list, your son and me, for about a year, and because we're looking for those kind of business leaders and community leaders that we can present to our audience and from whom lessons can be learned. So
Well, I'm glad you got the bugs out of the system, and now you're ready for the true.
And I also got to tell you, it's been a pleasure. I wasn't sure about this young kid, but it's working fine, and it's been a real pleasure to work with Nick. We've done a number of podcasts now, and it seems to be working well.
Yeah, we're doing okay. So, I mean, the podcast people will call you Rich. I'll call you Dad because that's who you are to me.
Okay.
But we'll kind of start off a little bit with some questions about yourself, about Park Ford and the staple that has become in this county. But you know, you've had a long time in the car business.
My entire life.
Everything, right? So it's been going back from your days in Yonkers and moving up here, and you took a business that had nothing and you made something out of it, and it's been a pretty long road for you. But tell us a little bit about how you've done it, how you've built the base, and where you are now.
Well, of course, you know, customers are a unique breed. They want to be attended to, they want to have their issues handled, they want it done respectfully, and they want you to honor their time. And that is a pretty big equation to make sure you can do that every day. So when we came up here in 2000, when we moved up from Yonkers, the first thing we did was try to understand who our customer is, because our customer is very different than they were down county. They have different needs. There's more of a bedroom community. There is no public transportation per se. So their vehicle became their right arm. And if we didn't respect the fact that that vehicle was out of service, or the need to replace it wasn't done in the right manner, we wouldn't gain the respect from the customer. So we had to change pretty quick from the down county attitude to being a little bit on the suburban side. So we did that pretty quickly, and we turned around a absentee owner location very quickly, paid attention to our employees, more importantly than we ever had to do before, because we had to really infiltrate the local community and hire people from our local community. And we did it quickly, and we're successful and have never been able to look back.
How many employees did you have when you first moved up here, as opposed to how many you have now?
I had just about 20 when we came up, and now we're just about 50. Try to keep it at 50 because that's the magic number, but we have 50 employees now.
And I suspect that won't be the end of it. Are you in a hiring mode at the present, or have you run out of space, or what has to be refigured for you to grow?
I think the biggest challenge is finding the right people for the right position. Retaining those people is a big challenge. We've been fortunate not to have a lot of turnover, and I pride not only what I've done, but what Nick is now doing, mentoring people and trying to be a little more empathetic to their needs. But right now, the work pool is pretty thin. So you've got to make sure you're training and rewarding and mentoring those employees to stay with you, because to replace them is near impossible.
Yeah. Sure.
I think that's a topic that we talk about a lot on this podcast, right, Nat? And obviously, it's a passion of mine when it comes to figuring out what it takes to keep your employees happy, make them work to their fullest ability, but making sure they're enjoying the workplace that they're in. So obviously, I do as much as I possibly can at the dealership to make sure that we have a good environment, a good culture. But it all stemmed from him originally, and he taught me the basics of the business, the backbone of how to do it all. When it comes to some of the younger generation that we have in the dealership, I might relate to them a little bit better than he can, but it's certainly constantly something that we always have to work on. It's just something we can't ever forget about.
Important is it being part of Ford. I mean, Ford is an organization that everybody knows a little bit about the history of, but of course it's a family company. And my sense is that the most successful dealerships within the Ford system are probably family businesses. Is that the case?
They are, and Nick is the third generation of our business. My father-in-law had started it back in '75 in Yonkers, and we moved it up to Mahopac and moved on from Lincoln to Ford, with the same group of people that we could bring up. I think it was probably like the first 15 or so employees that came up, some of them left on. But it's a family business, and I've had Ford in my blood since I was a child, because my parents back then either drove a Chevy or a Ford, and they drove, of course, a Ford. And Nick knows they're always white, because that's all I drive is white vehicles, my wife and I. But besides that, I grew up in the business as a technician, worked through college, came up and managed the business at an early age, worked for Ford for a couple of years, came back from Ford, and then started in retail, and I've been in it ever since. And it's a lifelong commitment to embrace the business, because it's a challenge every day. Every day is a unique challenge. Nothing is the same. Every customer is different. Every customer need is different. The emotional stress that goes into repair or replace is difficult to try to balance the customer's need versus the ability for us to fulfill that need. So every day you go in with this optimism of saying, we're going to do great today. We're going to take care of customers' needs. We're going to solve those problems, and we're going to make friends along the way. And we've done that ever since. We've done it ever since. And
corporate Ford has grown with you, has helped you. Is that's a helpful culture in itself?
I mean, manufacturers, and I'm going to put them all in the same bucket, because their main goal, of course, is customer satisfaction and the volume of sales. Right. Those two things kind of go hand in hand, but we're the caretakers, right? Because the manufacturer will build that product, and then we're out there trying to fill the void of the problems that occur. So they're in the same business, but their goals are quite different. It's about selling.
I see that. Now that's an interesting, if you will, it's not a conflict, but from time to time, doing both sides of that strike me as a real art form. So congratulations, you've taken the business as far as you have, because getting into the top 10% of the dealerships in the country strikes me as a real achievement. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. So we're a President's Award winner. We've won 10 years in the last 20 plus we've been here, and we've won the partnership award for the last 11 years through Ford Credit. But that's the voice of our customer. That's our employees delivering on the promise that we will take good care of you. And that promise is difficult to achieve every day. You're not always going to win. But if you have that optimism and that goal and that objective in your mind when you come to work every day, and you can deliver on that promise, you'll build something that's going to survive every ups and downs that we've seen in this business. And I've been at it for 40 plus years. We've had a lot of ups and downs, and we've weathered every one, because the customer will always keep you solid and keep you straight. Always.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna ask you both this next, but what about the transition to electric vehicles? Is that slower than you thought, faster than you thought? Something they're entirely in sync with? Tell me how that works for you.
It's peaks and valleys. I mean, it started off as something that came in fast and everybody wanted them, and we couldn't have enough EVs on the lot.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden there was a quick drop off that we saw rapidly, and all of a sudden we didn't know how to sell. You know, it's a different customer than we're used to. So like you talked about coming up here and adapting to the customer base that we have in Putnam County compared to Lower Westchester is kind of similar in the fact that you're not talking to the same people that you talked to 4 or 5 years ago on your internal combustion engine vehicles. So it's definitely somebody that's very informed, somebody that knows what they want. You talked about time before. Time is key for those buyers. Are they still around? Certainly. Are there people that have tried to adapt to EV vehicles and not really gotten it or enjoyed it? Certainly. But there's still buyers out there. I think that business is starting to rise again. But partially because the manufacturers have realized that the vehicles have to be at a certain price point in order for those vehicles to sell and make sense for the average buyer.
I mean, look where we came from, right? The horse and buggy, and all of a sudden, when internal combustion engines became affordable, you know, when Henry Ford and other manufacturers began to develop products that was for the everyday household, that change occurred relatively quickly. And then we stayed in that format for the last 100+ years. Electrification is almost at the same threshold that we're at when we transition from horse and buggy to ICE engines. But those that have faith and are adopted early, we've kind of exhausted a lot of those people. Now we've got to build affordability, and we've got to be able to make sure it's dependable, and we got to make sure it is convenient. And that's where the divide is right now. Customers don't view it as convenient, and they don't view it as dependable because of the fear of battery, lifespan, failure, being stranded. So it's going to take some time, but it's the wave of the future, and we're not going to stop it.
That's an excellent answer. Put me where I needed to be. There are the heat seekers out there in front, but we're through that group, and now I get it. Good.
Yeah.
So I have a question for you, and this is kind of really the point of the Putnam County Business Council. You've been in this county for quite some time, like you said, and our business is a very big cursor of the economy, right? We see it before a lot of other businesses do, especially retail. How do you see the next 6 months going forward, especially with an election year coming up, for what we're seeing right now and going forward?
Look, I've seen a lot of slow times, and I've seen a lot of prosperous times, and I think we're at the bottom, still climbing forward. There are, first of all, you know that the amount of people that are moving into our community is probably at a peak to where we've been in the last 30 years. Right now, we're probably climbing at some of the highest numbers of residents in Putnam County. Their ability to have free time, their ability to spend quality time with their families, limited because people are working 2 jobs, double spouse working families. There is a lot of pressure on people to enjoy the products and services this community can offer. So I truly believe we're at the groundbreaking stage of saying, if you want to start, or you want to expand, or you want to try to create a new business opportunity, I think the time now is better than ever. The cost of doing business, it's high. The cost of real estate, yes. Cost of rent, yes. But the rewards for a business that's well run, where you have a business leader that can establish a profitable service or product, and that's what it takes to be in business today. And then if you want to be great at it, you better have the best team in the world. And how do you develop a good team? By allowing them to be leaders, allowing them to make decisions, allowing them to treat your customers in your absence, if need be, as you would, and then standing behind the pluses and minuses of making a good or a bad decision. Because if you can do that, you'll create people that want to stay with you, want to grow your business, and treat your customers like gold. But they've got to be in part of the process. They got to be involved with making decisions. When you're looking at new software applications, or you're going to bring on a new product line, bring them into the conversation. Let them make the decision so they own that decision. So when they're out there marketing that service or product to the customer, they are part and parcel to why it's being offered. And if you can do that, whether you have a 2-person team or a 50-person team, you will breed success. That's how my philosophy is.
How do you keep that going there, Nick? That's do you all meet? I mean, tell me about the structure. How do you communicate amongst yourselves?
So
when you're not talking to customers, you're just communicating amongst yourself.
I mean, there's constant communication going on in the dealership, whether it's in service, parts, sales, doesn't matter. I mean, I'm in his office, I can't tell you how many hours every day going over what we're planning on doing, what we're doing. And he's 100% right. I mean, there's never a time where it's just me and him in his office making a decision.
No,
that doesn't exist.
I see. Well, that's good. I might have thought otherwise, but I'm glad to know that.
Yeah, you're never really gonna see that happen, but you know, there's today, just before we got here, we were on a call for a new software system that we're looking at, and there's 5 people on the call. All people that are going to be important decision makers in making that software decision. So I agree with what he's saying, and that's something that he's instilled in me, and it's worked, and I believe it. But again, like I think the biggest point of that is the fact that now that employee is invested in the decision they made, which I think is huge. So yeah, I mean, the dynamic that we have at the dealership with so much family, because it's not just me and him, it's my mother, I got a cousin, I got 3 uncles that are there.
I had no idea.
I got, you know, and
keep that wheel turning, boy. I'll tell you, keep those wheels moving. It's not easy.
And you know, a lot of the employees are like family. You know, I mean, I got my service manager Rob, who's been there since he was 19 years old, working a lot.
By the way, that is the voice of the one and only Jen Marr up on the background here. You can't see how beautiful she looks here today, but she is that.
So I guess I've been a customer at least 15 years. And besides the fact that I love Rich, I love Donna, and I've come to love Nick. I don't even deal with Rich anymore. I just deal with Nick.
Good.
Rob,
yeah,
he
Special.
exemplifies,
Special.
but you can tell it's also because of the environment, because you now have more Robs in
Yeah.
that department.
Yeah.
And it's infectious. And
Yeah.
literally I was like, I remember I was buying something else and I was like, I don't really want to Ford, but I don't want to buy a car from anybody else. Help me find it. Just because I didn't want to deal with another service department ever.
Yeah.
Right? I'm serious. Like, that's a big deal. I joked, but I
course
said
it
that they
is.
were my husband. The service department was my husband for a few years.
Which brings us to my last point, developing leaders where my presence may not be necessary because I've instilled in them the same philosophy of care and custody of that customer and their problems and their vehicle, and do it with empathy. If you can instill that in your employees, regardless of what you're selling, what you're offering, whether it's a product, a service, or if you're walking dogs, it all comes down to handling people. Everything is people. The products are insignificant. Everyone builds a good vehicle today, right? It's how you handle people internally, employee to employee, and then employee to customer. Those are the 2 big things. And I insist on having great employee to employee relations, and without question, employee to customer relations. I insist.
There must have been some people who you hired that washed out of the system, and if there were, they got out of the system because they couldn't understand that philosophy, or
And Nick could probably answer it better because his ears as a railroad tracks better than mine, especially with some of the younger people out there. A lot of people have a lot of high aspirations, which is great, and they want to move quickly. And a lot of times our business does not offer as many opportunities to see advancement. We try to give everyone the opportunity, but of course, when you have people that are in their careers that have another 15 or 20 years to go, they may not see those opportunities. But you have to reward people, keep them motivated, and give them hope that they can move up. And some of our biggest turnover is our technicians, of course, because
Sure.
there's always that thought of a greener pasture. We treat people extremely well. We offer great pay plans. We have a great match to the 401k. Nick's involved with a lot of group events, whether it's bowling or picnics or axe throwing or darts. Nick's always got something going on to keep people actively engaged and beyond our doorstep, and that's what it takes to try to keep everyone involved and saying, hey, you know what, they care about me. And that's difficult to do to 50 different people.
Sure.
The ones that have stayed with me for many years, we've kind of, from osmosis, and we've kind of joined at the hips. But new people, it's Nick, and I applaud him for what he's done to try to keep people engaged.
Excellent.
Well, so I don't want to, it's not violent, by the way. It's very spin bowling and following right down the street from here. So it's just part of one of the things they have, and it's very safe and it's good. But yeah, I mean, to his point, I mean, what we see and what you can tell right away is when I see one of our employees leaving their day, they're going to their car and they're about to leave, you can tell they're emotional. Some of them you can tell they're emotional because they care so much. They care like me and him care.
Yeah.
Those are the ones that you're gonna build your business around. Because the ones that just get by throughout the day and just do their job, they might be there for a few years and then they might go elsewhere. Those are the ones that aren't gonna give you everything they have every single day.
But they're few and far between. Most of our employees, we've got loyalty
much turnover
beyond reality. I can be honest. We have most of our employees have been with us for a long, long time. Jen knows. She walks in, it's the same faces, it's the same people year in and year out. And that's what I pride myself on, being able to say that we've got a very, very stable employee base.
Well, because what you just said earlier, and I'm glad you said it, that you're not just, it's not just the car business.
No.
It's any other kind of product and service. If you can build this loyalty, if you can build this team, if your best customers come in and recognize the people and are happy with them and wouldn't do it any other way, that's real testimony.
Nick and I have been to a lot of offsite training programs, whether it's in Detroit or other local regional training. And, Ford has their pockets deep into consultants and whatnot. But when they bring to you the epitome of excellence, it's other companies that do it well, and they use them as examples. So whether or not it's Hilton, it's Amazon, it's Apple, you name it, they bring in outsiders that are doing it, perhaps, a little bit higher level than we are, to help train us. So Ford is not really saying, hey, this is the way we think you should be doing it. They're looking for outside people that have already proven success, and they bring them to our doorstep, and we try to emulate some of those things. And we've got real good success in bringing our teams out to those training sessions to try to give them some of the applications. You walk into an Apple store, you kind of know how you're going to be treated every time. It's kind of consistent, right? It's never going to be different. If you give yourself enough time to make an appointment, you're going to have a good experience. That's what we are trying to achieve. And I think for the most part, and Jen said it already, we have done it. We have achieved.
To have your best customer.
Have our best customer sitting in front of us.
And then the room.
Yeah. So thank you, Jen.
So one of the other things I wanted to touch on as well is we have New York State Auto Dealers Association, we have Greater New York Auto Dealers Association. Those are the two big ones that we have representation in our state senate, up in Albany. What are some of the things that you feel need to be passed in Albany that are going to help Putnam County dealers and New York dealers in general in our industry?
That is a good question. And, the biggest one is probably, sales tax, because we generate a lot of sales tax. And, giving better representation to state and local communities on that sales tax base would be real helpful. I don't know what percentage offhand, I haven't looked at it recently, what percentage of Putnam County gets back out of our sales tax, but we generate zero. We generate hundreds of thousands of dollars in sales.
This is so music to our ears, because Putnam is the one of the only neighboring counties that
Yeah.
doesn't do this in New York State. Now, our current county executive doesn't really want to listen to this.
Yeah.
But I think I'm awfully glad you said that that's an important thing
So-
to keep looking at.
So last year, round numbers, our sales were over 60 million. So put 8% on top of that. I mean, there's a lot of sales tax being generated year after year after year. So having a portion of that being contributed back to development and growth of our community would be big help. On top of which, you're looking at, infrastructure. What is the state doing? I mean, forget about the roads. We know how pitiful they are. No matter what road you're on, you're saying, how is it possible I can be paying taxes and have roads this bad that are contributing to potholes and flats and bad rims and bad front ends on your vehicles? The amount of repairs we do on vehicles because of road integrity or lack of it is incredible.
Yeah.
And then you look at the fact that how is it possible that we don't have any real business growth and business investment because we've been lackluster in trying to reinvest in infrastructure in Putnam County? If you want a dealer like myself to buy another facility and invest the money it takes to go through the planning session, the approval session, and then the build and construct without having town water, town sewer, I wouldn't do it. I've been saying it for 20 plus years. I'm going to say it for the next 15 until he takes over. But I can tell you right now, if you want investment in this town, it's got to come from the state to allow us to spend some money to build our infrastructure. We're one of the last few towns around without it. It's embarrassing.
And as Nick is, the reason he brought up the question, one of the main functions of the Putnam County Business Council is to try to listen to people like yourself and help the business community deal with whatever it is that comes out of Albany or doesn't come out of Albany.
Yep.
Thank you for that comment, Rich. We'll be back to you. So,
Yeah, well,
So,
Jen knows I'm on that fight.
I mean, I just picked something out of there. You said 15 years? Is that what you have left?
Yeah. I was waiting for it.
I heard it.
Hold on, I've had a 2-year plan for 8 years already, so extrapolate that out. It might be 15.
I don't think that's gonna happen.
No, it won't.
Not like that one.
No.
You better either get married and have a kid, or you gotta retire.
Maybe that's what I made.
Well, I like both of those ideas.
It's been very inspirational. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, well,
You're
thanks
one
for
of
having
the
me.
first person I think I met when, I'm from the other side of
Yes,
the county.
yes,
And
yes.
as we know, there's not that much flow between the two, but I first met Jen and almost immediately met
Yeah,
yourself.
yeah.
And that's 10 years ago,
Yeah,
if not
been
more.
a long time.
It's been a pleasure and I'm really glad to see you again. And thank you so much for coming in and
No, thanks for
being
having me.
part of.
I just hope that, some of these things, filter down into some of the small business
They should
people
be-
that are in a community that are looking to develop themselves and try to build a team. Because believe me, I can't fix a car. I can't diagnose a problem. I probably can't even give a customer quote anymore like Nick does as fast as he does. But I can tell you, if you came in to see any one of us, you'd get your vehicle fixed, your car quoted, and you get your diagnostics done very efficiently because I got great people. It's all about the team. All about the team.
Very inspirational. Thank you
Yeah.
very much.
Yeah.
Rich.
Thank you so much for tuning into the Voice of Putnam County Business. Let's hear a word from our sponsor. Thanks for tuning in to the Voice of Putnam County Business, brought to you by Putnam County Business Council. We are sponsored today by the Promenade on 6. Promenade on 6 is a small business hub that is set in an industrial, modern, contemporary space that is proudly showcasing all different kinds of small businesses. You have to check it out. Go to promenadeon6.com and you will get an idea of what Promenade on 6 is. And also brought to you by Park Ford. Park Ford is located right on Route 6 in Mahopac. If you are interested in purchasing a vehicle, you're going to reach out to Nick D'Andrea, 914-774-0036. But I can tell you that I have personally bought and sold, I think, about 5 vehicles with Park Ford. In fact, I have bought cars that are not Fords through them just for the fact that I don't want to deal with any other service department. These guys are world class, whether it comes to buying and selling vehicles or getting your vehicles serviced. Park Ford.